Well, the truth is we don't know yet. This will depend on a number of different factors, including what is the ultimate ceasefire agreement? How can European and possibly American leaders provide the most important element, which is a security guarantee, which is a particularly challenging issue, I think. And then beyond that, frankly, I've seen many different incarnations of these so-called EU security architecture. In general, they're basically using the same forces that are committed to NATO missions throughout Europe. And I've always been a little bit skeptical about the capabilities of an EU only force. And that's based on a good bit of experience over the years in NATO assignments, even as a second lieutenant, when, by the way, I was stationed in Vicenza, Italy, with a paracadutista battalion, American Airborne Battalion Combat Team. We had critical NATO missions. Years later, I was on the inter-German border as a brigade operations officer. I was the speechwriter for the Supreme Allied Commander Europe. I watched it from a close perspective as the executive officer to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And then as a general officer, I had 1-star, 3-star, and 5-star I had 1-star, 3-star, and 4-star assignments that were NATO and also US, so-called dual-hatted. So I've had a fair amount of experience seeing how NATO missions work, looking at various, again, incarnations of EU security arrangements. And my general view is that without the US security foundation for a major operation, it is pretty difficult for Europe to pull it all together on its own. The US in particular brings enormous capabilities when it comes to so-called enablers. So this is capabilities such as long-haul transportation, the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance architecture that we can put over a particular operation. It's air power, sea power, if that's relevant in that case, and of course a very substantial ground component. And I'm worried that without the US, that the capabilities of a force will be fairly limited, noting that most of the European countries, until the more recent threats by Vladimir Putin, most had taken quite a substantial peace dividend, had reduced their forces in the wake of the Cold War. And some of the most important countries, the UK in particular, continued to reduce their forces after the years of the post 9/11 operations, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan in particular. So while I'm absolutely all for Europe spending a larger percentage of GDP on defense, well beyond the 2% of GDP that everyone agreed, the NATO members agreed to at the Wales summit a number of years ago, I really hope that the US will continue to be the cornerstone, the foundation, whatever term you want to use, for NATO operations. Again, without that, it's pretty tough. And I'll just close on this question by noting that, to put this all in perspective, the US doesn't just spend more than all of its other NATO allies put together. It spends more than 2 times all of them put together, 2.3, I think. And just the increase in the US defense budget this coming year, which will be at least $70–80 billion, is larger than the individual defense budgets of the 3 largest countries in NATO.